Thanks for tuning into the Parkside Parent Podcast. I'm Robbie Lacey, the middle school pastor, and it is our mission in Parkside students and children's ministries to support families as we help unbelieving children and students become committed followers of Jesus Christ. Today, Danny and I are excited to have on our senior pastor, Alistair Begg, to answer the question, how do children's and student ministries fit into a larger church?
Alistair, thank you for joining us on our parent podcast. It's fitting that you're on our first episode because of the question that we're going to be asking to kick off our season of these podcasts. One of the all too common misconceptions that I think that people in general can have about children's and youth ministry is that they're kind of a separate operation from corporate worship. And so there's kind of this idea that adults go to their thing and then children and students go to their thing. Now at Parkside, we have a much different vision for children and student ministry. And we feel strongly that those ministries don't just coexist side by side, but they're actually working together in what we're purposing to do. So Alistair, my question for you is this: how do children's and student ministry fit into the larger mission of the church?
Well, first of all, at the heart of that is an understanding of the church itself. That we, one of the ways in which the church is described is as the ecclesia, a compound, which means the called out ones. So at the very heart of getting to grips with any question like that, we have to say, well, what actually is the church? And it is a family. God is our Father, Christ is our elder brother. And in fact, the way in which Jesus spoke about family life is quite staggering. In that, you remember on that one occasion where somebody says, your mother and your brothers are here, and he says, who are my mother and my brothers? Those that do the will of God. And so at the very heart of this question, there's a striking thought. And that is that God's concern for the church family actually supersedes his concern for the nuclear family. And that the significance of a Christian family is tied directly to the fact that united to Christ, they are then united to a much larger family. And so when the parents of that nuclear family understand that to be the case, then church doesn't become something that we go to or that we observe, it becomes something that we are. And so when we understand that the unique thing in this is that, then that will be conveyed in different ways to the children who are constantly going to be asking questions, well, why are we going there? Or why are we doing this? And it really falls to the parent, first of all, to be able to say, this is who we are. This is our identity. And the way in which it is, I think, works at best is a sort of three-pronged attack. And that is that the people who have privileged responsibilities in pastoral ministry, whether it's myself or somebody else, we convey something not only in the words we say, but in the way we conduct ourselves, the way we move amongst people. The way I move amongst teenagers, for example. Do they feel that they have the ability to approach me? Am I unapproachable? Do they feel any kind of connection there? You say, well, that's not going to happen in a vacuum. No, it isn't. Because the way in which the parents feel about that, and then the way in which, for example, those involved in leadership in youth ministry feel about that. Because as we both know, teenagers are pretty savvy on this stuff. And they can tell whether, quotes, their youth pastor is a friend of the senior pastor, or whether, in the worst of cases, which I think we may have seen in the past, maybe 100 years ago, it becomes very obvious to the young people that their guy believes that he really is the key guy, and that if he had the opportunity to be that guy, then things would be much better than they really are. Yeah. I suppose the flip side of that is the person in the position that falls to me feeling that somehow or another, if he could just wear his jeans, then he could be really effective in the youth ministry. So I think it is those three legs on the stool, really. The interface between my role, your role, and the parent's role, and we all understand this is about family.
That's really good. Now, in practically considering helping, say, a high school student have a robust understanding of what it means to be a part of God's family, the local expression of that at Parkside Church, can you think of some good examples of what it might look like through, say, the years of middle school and high school for a student to experience family life at Parkside?
Well, the way in which we gather, the way in which families gather, I mean, it would be a dysfunctional family where the father and mother ate, at 4 o'clock, and two of the children, they had their meal at 6 o'clock, and then another one who didn't really like meals in general, he just lived in the attic and had meals, fed to him through a hole in the door. I mean, you couldn't possibly, that is only family in name. So part of the problem in America is the privilege that we have of all these resources. And so we're able to split things up into age range things. And there's tremendous purpose and benefit in that, without question. I mean, the average 16-year-old doesn't really want his dad hanging around when they're, playing softball or having a barbecue. We get that. But there has to be at some point within church life, and that has to really be where the church gathers across the boundaries of age. So one of the ways in which the person gets a sense of that is by being in the company of older people, in the company of younger people, in the company of children. Well, you're not going to be able to do that by putting everybody in separate rooms. So when we come together in gathered worship, that's important. But not just the experience of sitting there, but the privilege of being involved there, whether it is in serving. For example, I think we can do far better with greeting people in their entry to the church. Very few of our young people have a significant role in that. There's no reason why they shouldn't. In terms of the leading of the praise, as our church continues to age, you miss the benefit of that. That's another way. Essentially, both by their presence and their participation in some serving role, I think they gain a far greater understanding of their being part of a larger thing than simply the group that they might meet with as their peer group.
Excellent. Well, as parents, as you listen to this conversation, we hope that you'll prayerfully discern for each and every single one of your kids and your students in all the ways that God has structured your family and the gifts that He's given each of you in your family, that you would find meaningful ways to participate in the life of the church and trying to apply these principles for your family. Alistair, thank you for joining us, and we hope this conversation has been helpful for you as parents.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us today. Please remember to subscribe to the podcast, and please check out the show notes below for more resources relating to the topic we covered today. And be sure to tune in next week when we have Jonathan Holmes to come on to answer the question, how can I care for my child who's experiencing anxiety?